Hi there, I'm MacGybo, and I'm just going to sit on the perimeter gate in Jita for a bit. I've done a few videos with tutorials and some giveaways, and I'd like to go back to just sitting on the gate and seeing what happens, scanning some stuff, see if we can get any kills, and having a bit of a chat about techniques, hints, tips. Maybe look at some of the comments that have been left on some of the other YouTube videos and just go over what it is that I'm doing here. And what I am doing here at the moment is scanning ships as they come through the into Jita from perimeter. Specifically, I'm looking at corvettes because people tend to bring crazy expensive stuff in through this gate in corvettes. So it's my job to relinquish them of those goodies. There's been a few comments that have been made referring to the moral side of being a ganker, if it's immoral. Some people have mentioned it and defended it, just saying that while it's not something that they do, it's just an alternative game style, something that's all part of the EVE system. I think we can go a step further than that and say that it's actually encouraged. It's one of the few games, I believe, few MMOs, where the developers not only allow it, but when you look at the promotional material for EVE Online, piracy and ganking is advertised as being an active career choice, something that you can set out to do. I think it's something that CCP are quite proud of, the fact that there's this subculture that exists within the game. So if there's a moral aspect to it, then you have to look at the developers who allow this to happen within the game. It's not an accident. It's pretty much by design. I mean, we've got cargo scanners here, and we've got Concord tags that allow you to repair your security status. Also bear in mind that Concord, it doesn't prevent ganking, provided your security status is on the right side of whatever that system requires. So, is there a moral aspect? I don't think with the mechanics and that system in place you can say that it is immoral to do this. I did gank somebody a couple of weeks back who said that because I killed them in high security space that it was an exploit and they were going to be reporting me to CCP and I would be banned. That never really developed into anything. There was another ganker a couple of weeks back as well who was on the same gate as me, and I've always said I can't stop people from being on the same gate as me. It's sandbox game, isn't it? But the only problem with that is we're going to be going for the same targets, and we're going to inevitably annoy each other, whether it be because I get one of his targets or he gets one of mine. And this potential for dispute became a reality a couple of weeks back when a ganker who was on the gate tried to shoot an untanked corvette and didn't kill him. I finished the job off and I got the loot, and I got in touch with the ganker, the other ganker, and sent him through the money for 50% of what dropped, which I thought was fair enough. But what I got back from him was a lot of abuse, very unpleasant stuff, and it went on and it developed, and I'm like, look, you didn't kill the guy, he is the kill male, you didn't kill him, and I've sent you through half of the loot, which, you know, he never asked for it, I just did it out of what I felt was the right thing to do, I suppose. And then he got even nastier, and he said that he'd been filming me doing this. Now, I don't know why he's filming me. Everything that I do, I write about it. Everything I do, it's videoed and it's up on YouTube. But he said he'd been filming me, and it was clear from what he'd seen that it was RMT, that I was buying the things that I gank, which is a really odd thing for another ganker to say. I mean, it's odd for any character to say, but particularly for another ganker. So he went quite nasty, like I say, and I ended up saying to him, well, look, maybe it's best if we don't share this gate. And he annoyed some other gankers as well, so he's made himself a bit of a target now. Now, just as a reminder, what I'm doing here is I've got corvettes only on the overview here. So what I'm trying to do is catch them as they come through. So I'm repeatedly spamming in this area here in the hope that I will get something pretty quickly, right, as it jumps through, because you need to be able to lock onto it, scan it, and then decide within a couple of seconds, not even that, if it's something that's worth killing. And it's quite interesting sometimes how Eve goes into your real life, in that I've become attuned to seeing almost immediately in the cargo whether or not it's something that I want to kill. And I've said this a few times before, I should be looking down here at the ISK value, but I don't. I look up here at the images. And because of that, if I see the word skill, or the little image of the multiple pilot training certificate, or a skill extractor, or an injector, then I tend to be trigger happy at that point. And it's got to the point now where if I see the word skill out with the Eve environment, there's something in my brain goes, oh, that's interesting. Someone's asked on one of the other videos, Mototype 2 says, this may have been asked in another video, but what is the one tritanium by itself sometimes seen in corvettes? Is it bait to try and have someone jump the gun and engage? Not at all. It used to be the case that whenever you got a corvette, it automatically came with one tritanium in the cargo hold. That's something that appears to have stopped. But if you see that, then you know that you're looking at quite an old corvette. Denlan in your Ibis. Have you got anything on board for me? 52 million. Now I've had a little less luck with the last 4 or 5 kills that I did, and I'm sure it's just a coincidence, but it has immediately followed me saying in a chat with some of the gankers that I don't believe in the loot fairy anymore, and I was going to actively deny the existence of the loot fairy to see where that led me with my drops. And I've been responded to with accusations of heresy and blasphemy, but the reality is that I had 4 kills in a row where nothing dropped of any value at all. Injectors, extractors, all the nice juicy things that you'd like to keep for yourself. And the loot fairy, who doesn't exist, kept them all. So I've got a choice. I either persist on this path of being a heathen, or I have to make amends. And there are suggestions on how to make amends. I think self-destructing a shuttle at the sun, or leaving one of your own corpses at the sun, are meant to be things to placate the loot fairy. But I have no plans at this point to do any such things. So one of the things that you can do that's a good idea is to use some of the inbuilt Windows options to use a key on your keyboard as a left button, and that way you can keep spamming this area here to try and lock things as they come through without running down your mouse button or having annoying clicks from the mouse button in the background while you're filming a video. I had somebody earlier today strike up a conversation with me to ask if I could recommend some fits for them to steal loot off gankers. I thought that this can't be what he's asking me, so I wrote for clarification, and he's like, yeah. I said, so you're contacting me to ask me for fits so you can steal loot off me? He's like, oh, no, that's not quite what I meant. I didn't mean you. But for the last few hours he's been hanging around my gate in different ships. So I've set him red, and you need to be aware of pilots like that. Now, I'm well aware of the irony of me being, not complaining, but aware of people who might steal a loot off me when I'm a ganker. I'm not complaining about it. It's part of the game, it's part of the infrastructure, it's part of the ecosystem, and you have to be aware of it. So it is going to annoy me if I get loot stolen, but I need to be prepared for that. I need to set up measures to make sure that they can't get away with anything that they might steal. Ideally that they can't get it in the first place. So you need to do that as well if you're ganking. You need to think about where your weak spots are. What is your plan going to be? Is your plan going to be to figure out the best system to get to the loot before them and get away? Are you going to scoop your loot into another ship? Are you going to be able to stop them if they do get to the loot before you? Do you have a ship that can scram them and web them and ultimately destroy them and hope that the loot drops for a second time? So these are all things to be aware of. Just a heads up that at the time that I'm recording this, I'm still running a competition to give away 1,000 plex to one of my YouTube subscribers. I'm going to pick one at random. They need to enter, you need to go to my website and put your details into a form I've got there. And by details I just mean ticking a box to say that you're a subscriber and putting your in-game name and clicking submit. Please don't enter more than once. One chap has entered his name about 300 times. Other people have entered through about 20 different alts. I know when people are entering more than once, there's ways of measuring that. So please don't do it. Just do one entry and everyone's got a same chance of winning. One of the things that I wanted to ask about is EVE players who have Patreon pages, YouTubers particularly. It's something I've been looking at. Do you or have you ever paid for additional content from EVE Online content creator through Patreon? If you have, or if it's something you would consider, what kind of additional content would you be interested in seeing? Would you be at all interested in a MacGybo Patreon page with additional content, additional videos, also the opportunity to join me ganking, join me in a fleet, tutorials, behind the scenes videos, things like that? If you're interested, then leave a wee message. Oh, they're coming through fast, but there's nothing in them. NEPF, this little tag up here. That's New Eden Police Force, which is a corp that fancy themselves as, well, basically whoring on Concord kill mails or paying to activate kill rights of gankers. They're exactly the same as Concord in that there's nothing that they can do to prevent a gank should I want to be shooting someone just now. Short of buying out all of the kill rights, and I think my cheapest kill rate at the moment, open kill rate, is 200 million. Let's have a little nosy in a couple of these ships, see what people are taking around. The old limited social adaptation ship. We all got one of them in our first week. So there's a few different kinds of big ships which will be bringing through large cargoes, and there's some of them that are really gankable and there's some of them that aren't, if you were going to go down the route of tornadoes. So you've got your T1 industrials. We saw a Terra just there. Your Badgers, your Iterons. And these can have larger tanks, but in general you would be potentially looking at these as targets if you were a tornado pilot. I would recommend, if you are going to be a ganker of industrials, that you have an alt that's maybe further down the pipe and scanning the ship for fits, so you've got an idea of what the tank is. So you're not just shooting and wishing for the best, because you can get tanks on Iterons and such like quite easily that will tank a tornado's volley without breaking a sweat. You get two different sorts of T2 haulers. One is called DST, Deep Space Transport, and one is a BR blockade runner. DST, like an Okator, can have a huge tank, and it's really not, but you can scan them, so you'll have an idea of whether or not it's worth ganking if you've got that scout in place. But it is going to take you quite a few ships to bring down a DST. A blockade runner has got a much smaller tank, but it can align and warp almost instantly, and you can't scan it. You'll have no idea what's in it before you kill it, before you shoot it. It's immune to cargo scanners, so they're very difficult to catch. Usually they can only be caught through pilot error, so if the pilot doesn't warp off straight away, or nightmare of nightmares if he's decided to autopilot in it. But you'd like to think he's not going to do that if he's got something of value, but you never know. We see dumb pilot stuff every day. Then you get much larger cargo ships, the capital ones, and there are people who can gank them, but really you need to either have a ridiculous amount of pilots or lots of pilots and be in like 0.5 security space, so you've got time to get in a lot of damage before Concord turns up. You don't have that in 0.9 space unless it's an event like Burn Jita, which is where they had hundreds of pilots turning up and ganking ships, and that many pilots that everything slows down. Concord can't possibly keep on top of it, and that's when you get to see the big, like the likes of the obelisks and what have you, being destroyed. But we've not had a Burn Jita for a long time now. I think we're due one, aren't we? Is there a reason that there hasn't been one? I don't really stay on top of politics and the big alliances and what have you in EVE and what's happening in nullsec. Yeah, let's have a Burn Jita. If you're aware of who it is that organises that, then let them know that it's time. Knocking on the door. Or if you know why there hasn't been one, you could leave me a wee comment. So he's got 937 million-isk worth of cargo there. But he's in a Fenrir, which is a freighter. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of hit points. So he's fairly safe from anything other than a really organised event. And while I'm talking to you here, I'm missing targets here. There's another Fenrir there. 1.2 billion on board. They do tend to be industrial cargoes, meaning that it's components for ships and things like that that are in these big ships. It could be industrial corps that are bringing things to market. This part here with the number on it, that's another quality of life change that CCP introduced a few years ago that made my job as a ganker a whole lot easier. Because you scan that ship and it's got a whole bunch of stuff. And it used to be the case that before you had this here, you had to make that decision yourself very, very quickly as to whether or not you would pop that ship. Now I remember having about 3 or 4 ships come through at the same time, and I scanned them and I couldn't see anything and moved on and moved on. And then after I went back through closing all the windows, I saw that one ship that looked like this had 5 skill extractors on board, and I missed it just because that was how everything was stacked back then, without the valuation at the bottom. This to me is even more proof that oh, I've already seen you. Is even more proof that CCP are absolutely fine with gankers being here. I think everybody's first industrial was probably bought because of all of the stuff that drops when you're doing missions, all of the rat loot, and then very quickly fills up your hangar, and you just need some way to get it to market. I think I started off Galente pilot, and I'm sure that the T1 industrials for Galentes used to be different. You've still got an Iteron 5, but I'm sure it was, were they not all called Iterons? Was it not Iteron 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5? Or am I imagining that? Tim Winky, I'm not going to shoot you. I mean, you can lock onto somebody very quickly as they come through here, but if you shoot someone who's suspect, like if I'd shot little Tim Winky there, I would get a little timer here. And that's because I've been in a fight with somebody. And the moment that I get that timer up here, I would lose my boosts here. So I've got remote sensor boosting and remote tracking. And that's because my remote booster has got safety set on. If he was to remote boost me when I've been in a fight with somebody, he would go criminal and I would lose my ship. I would lose my boosting ship. So that's just something to be aware of when you're ganking. You just got to focus in on what you're doing, because particularly at a market hub like this, you'll have lots of people passing through where it might be tempting to shoot them, but you need to ask yourself what you're getting out of that. You're not going to lose 5-10 minutes of a boost that would allow you to catch something good just so you can get a Corvette kill. There's some people get very, very upset at just being scanned. Now I can understand people getting upset at being killed, but there are people who will hang around the gate for about 20 minutes after you've scanned them, trying to bump you, giving you abuse. You think, how would you be if I killed you, if I'd blown up your ship? Every one of these people that I'm scanning have got their own little story here, their own reasons for running through to Jita. You learn about things, you learn about items from scanning. You learn about new items as well, seeing things that you've not seen before. And the thing about brand new items is that if it's something that's only been out for a couple of days, you'll not get a valuation for it. It takes Eve a little while to get a valuation. So when you scan it, it shows up as being its true value in the bottom of the scanning box here at this part. So when the Doctor Who event was going on, I did scan somebody that had the full suit, which was worth, what, a couple of billion? But it showed up as 0. It's the same with new skins as well. They scan and show up as at 0 value, and sometimes you've got to take a risk and just shoot them, Because skins are an odd thing. Skins could be worth less than 100,000 disc, or they could be worth a few billion. What I would really like, the top of my hit list at the moment, what I would really like is one of the blueprint copies for the Alliance tournament ships, which I think are going for, is it Raiju? They're valued about 150 billion each. And if you take a look at the blueprint, I think it's only like 1 tritanium that it takes to create the ship, something like that. But the ship itself, once you've created it, is worth what some people wouldn't have in a lifetime. So another quick shout out for the Frigate free-for-all that's taking place in Uleta, being run by Stay Frosty and a band apart, which will be at the end of next month. They'll be giving away 10,000 plus frigates to fight with in the system that day, and it is always great fun. They break records every year for the amount of people fighting and dying, all the combat in low sec. It's the most active low sec day in the history of EVE, and it's just great fun. You turn up in a clean pod, jump into one of the stations, and we will be there dishing out ships to you. Just hit up with a trade window and I'll put you over a frigate, or any of the other pilots who are there from Stay Frosty and a band apart will trade you over a frigate. Then you undock and you fight with it. Maybe you live, maybe you die, but then you just come back and get another frigate, and you keep going and going and going. You get kills, you have fun. There will be special ships being undocked for you to kill. You will be able to get prizes. I'm giving away prizes as well. I'm sure Rick's will be giving away skins. I'm giving away a couple of large skill injectors. Now, some people have got in touch and asked, can we turn up with our own fleet on the day in our own ships? Well, it's EVE, we can't stop you, but it's not really within the ethos and the spirit of the thing. It's a bit of a level playing field when we're all fighting with exactly the same ships and exactly the same fits. And what's it going to prove if you turn up with something else and start killing people? It's not really the spirit of the day. And the other rule really is try not to pod people, because podding people sends them home. You don't want to do that. You want people to stick around and have fun for as long as possible. It's lasting for a good few hours, so whatever your time zone is, hopefully there's a wee window there where you can come along and join in. And it's only 1 jump from high sec, so you don't have to go for a long run through low sec to get there. The event will be in low sec, so you won't get concorded when you're shooting the other ships. And the activity tends to take place in belts or at planets, so there's no gate guns or station guns to worry about either. And you can come and get some Riksjaviks or MacGybo kill mails, should such a thing interest you. When you scan lots and lots of ships and they start stacking up, then I think it can actually slow the client down. And certainly what can happen is, once you've got a lot there and then you click to close it, it can freeze up the client for a little while. Now, I mentioned about when you scan lots of ships, you see items which you don't normally come across, and here's an example. Footwear. Boots.ini. So what I do is, look at that, what was that? 5 billion? Oh, I've left it too late. 5 billion for, now what is it? Is it the skins? Yeah. Wow. I think that was a frigate as well. Maybe it wasn't. I know it wasn't a corvette. But 5 billion in skins. Maybe he'll get caught at the station. I did get 2 kills earlier today. one a large skill injector that didn't drop, and the other one was a selection of implants here. I think it was about 700 million that dropped. I've seen a big increase of gankers around Jita since I started putting the videos online. That's cool, you know, people watching the videos and getting inspired to try something new. That's brilliant. But I'm wondering if people are beginning to step on each other's toes. I do know that there's a wing of Black Flag who are usually, you associate Black Flag with high-sec space war decks, where they camp the gates in high-sec and wait for the people that they war deck to come through, and then they kill them in big numbers. But they've got a corp in their alliance which appear to be high-sec gankers, the same way that I am, but maybe going around and targeting individuals. And they seem to be targeting some of the newer gankers who may be trying to set up on some of the gates surrounding about Jita. There have been quite a lot of new people turning up, so maybe it's just a way of addressing that. But it's not something I've been part of. I've been quite amused by it. Because one thing you don't want to be doing is competing on a gate for the same targets. When you can see here, you could be sitting here for hours and not get a decent target. So the last thing you want to do is finally see a target and then get beaten to it by another ganker. Well, again, another ganking video without any ganking. I think I've got about a 50% success rate of shooting videos and getting a kill, which I suppose is fairly representative of being a ganker. You can spend a lot of time doing what you do here and have nothing to show for it. So it would be not very representative of ganking as a whole if I was only to show you a video made up of kills and drops. It's much more honest to show me sitting here for an hour scanning ships and not seeing anything sexy at all. No large skill injectors, nothing that could really be ganked. But this is it. You pay your dues with the time that you spend sitting here, and you get out what you put in. If you're only going to turn up and sit around for 10 minutes, then the chances of you getting something's pretty slim. So if you've got this far into the video, well done. Give yourselves a pat on the back. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'd appreciate any likes as well. And I'll see you again next time. Bye now.